We want to. We heard about this Thursday. Less than 3 business days really knows. That's why we're asking for you to follow your process. You may have given the 72-hour requisite notice for just something on the agenda. But you could do better. You could have a public hearing in accordance with your rules, and that would give us 10 business days notice. I think Representative Cyrier, Wilson, and Schubert, all 3 signed that letter, not just Representative Cyrier, I'll correct the record there. They all asked you for a month. These folks want to comment to you. They're here. Their presence signifies a comment, a concern, a grave concern, I believe, from talking to them. Then enough time to understand what's going on there. You could read that timeline and you come away totally confused about, well, what is it we're here to do? What you're here to do is the process that you guys have prided yourselves on always. Your rules are in place. Your lawyer says that she thinks it's a substantive amendment. Doesn't matter whether it's substantive or non-substantive in transport permits, as Judith points out. But whether you get hung up on substantive or non-substantive or not, how could you not think this was substantive? Third again as much. And the governor said in his veto that he doesn't want to hinder the public transparency for the public, but he also doesn't want to hinder your ability to look at the aquifer under changed conditions when these permits come up for renewal. And I was here in September of 2014 in the other building, and I spoke to you then. And I don't think your entire discussion was about fees and being ticked off with blue water, although you well should have been. I remember, and I think I know who said it most succinctly, but I'm not going to say who it was in case I put words in folks' mouths. There was a concern. I want to look at this permit again. I don't want to do this now. Why are we doing this 20 years earlier? I want to look at this permit again when we get farther down the road. Why do you want to do that? You don't know what 50,000 acre feet a year starting in 2020 is going to do to this aquifer. You've got a good start on monitoring, but you don't have data of what that actual pumping will do. How is it discriminatory for you to look at each of the permits you've let, including one that you refused 3 years ago to extend? Why not take the same position again? But short of that, follow your own process. As Judith says, we're not telling you what you have to conclude, but me standing up here flapping my lips doesn't matter a whit to you because this is just public comment. A hearing is important. You will hear from people if you have a public hearing and give them a chance to suggest what's happening. This is just like surprise, total surprise. It's not within your process to do it that way, I don't think. And I don't think you owe Blue Water the duty to take it up just because they said so. I will point out to you that they signed a contract for $3.4 billion of water supply after you told them you didn't want to renew that permit yet. Then they re-upped that contract that was in 2014, a couple months after you voted 5-5. 2016, they reconfirmed that contract with what they call financial close, which means they can't voluntarily walk away from the contract anymore and pay limited damages. So it's a living, breathing contract. Did that again without coming back to you then. I'm a public finance attorney. I understand what lenders want. That's their problem. It does not govern what an independent regulatory agency ought to do when faced with questions that are covered by their rules, and this question is covered by your rules. So I'll go back to what our representatives asked you for. And that is follow your process, set a public hearing so that transparency is preserved for the public. You know, they're giving you an opportunity to blame them if you want to for asking you as public officials to stop, do this a different way. They're not telling you how to vote. So just remember that Vista Ridge didn't need your consent apparently to get this contract rolling and to induce San Antonio to sign it and then to close the financial side of it again. So what's the hurry? Why are we here 17 years early? Mr. Terrell is absolutely sure that there's no way you can fail to give them longer time on that permit. Okay, but he's sure. He didn't tell you one reason why it would be discriminatory for you to look at the terms of individual permits that you have issued. You're not discriminating against them. You're observing the terms of permits, and you're observing your rules when somebody asks you to amend a permit, specifically a transport permit. So we want to comment to you, but we want it to be meaningful. And we appreciate that you're thinking that a public hearing would be the better forum. It would be a forum that would comply with the rules. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I know I'm not out of district, but I do communicate a lot with people in your district. And I thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak to you.
Thank you very much for getting to that comment. You had a couple of additions, but they did not go before you, Gabo, so you're up next.
Thanks for the night. I'm Gabo Getch. We own land right in the middle of the well field right there where they're drilling that. The mission statement for Post Oak, Savannah is conservation and preservation. Everything that we're looking at right now is models. And we're 17 years away from this contract being out. Why don't we look at it another 5 and see what it's going to do? Where we can, what we're spending money on for monitoring wells and all that. Why are we worried about what a computer does? Because we all know you can go somewhere and whoever puts the numbers in, you can try for the same answer, but whoever puts the numbers in, you'll have 2 different answers. So why just use our monitoring wells to make this happen? Tomorrow or somewhere's here pretty soon, they're fixing to test one of the wells right there beside us. In 36 hours, which we're to of wastewater, prevention of wastewater, we're going to pump 6.5 million gallons of water away. Pump it out, it's just going to be gone. And then we just want to keep on extending these permits to them? No, I don't think so. We need to know what these wells are doing with numbers, facts, not models. That's what this is all about, guys. That's your job to do for us, to show it to us. Cindy, you keep saying being transparent, that's transparent. When you have numbers in front of you, just like we do the financial deal. We do a financial deal, and those are numbers. That's not facts. Those are numbers. That's what we plan for. Why don't we do this modeling with facts, not software, guys? That's all we're asking. And let us. We all know that when we send our kids out or we plan our child's life or whatever, how many times it doesn't succeed in what we plan. But we have a good plan, but it doesn't succeed. We have a good plan for all the models we think, but we don't know if that's going to happen. So let's look at facts. There's no reason for 17 years early. And that's all I got. Thank y'all very much for all the effort.
Gabo, appreciate your comment. Next would be, got 2 left. Next would be Mr. Fred Russell.
Yes, Sydney, Judith McGurry covered exactly what I was going to mention, so I'll pass.
Okay. I guess effectively we could pass your 3 minutes that we haven't adhered to all night long. That's okay, that's our choice. it's been good. And thankful for that, for everyone who's spoken so far. So, Mr. Frazier, you've got an additional 3 minutes that just been passed to you. Not that that matters. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Frazier. I'm Representative Terry Wilson's Chief of Staff, and he could not be here tonight, but he wanted me to be here to represent him, and I've been discussing with him things that were discussed in this meeting, a few other things tonight. And he wanted me to convey to you that at the time when the votes were taken on the bill, there were a lot of things under discussion at the time in the package of water legislation, but transparency wasn't an issue that was discussed at the time when the bills were voted on. And while he supported the bill at the time, and now it's meaningless as to whether or not any representative voted for the bill at the time or not. The governor has, the governor in his veto made the law as it is. The Texas Constitution makes it very clear that if a bill is vetoed, the legislature has a chance to overturn that veto. They were in special session. There were other things that could have been done to, if we wanted to have overturned vetoes. It did not happen. The governor's veto stands. And so what the legislators wanted, what they voted for, what their intentions were, what the governor's intentions were, none of that holds any legal weight or matters. The law is what the law is, and what Representative Wilson may have voted for or not, or supported at one point or not, is insignificant in comparison to what the law is. The governor has issued a veto. We respect the governor's veto. We honor the law as it is, and will not attempt to enforce anything other than what the law is at the moment. That is all.
Mr. Frazier, thank you very much for those comments. Appreciate that very much, making the trip and sharing. Paul, you would be next. Or excuse me, for report. Be next.
Thank you, Judge.
Ready?
Good. Absolutely.
I just got to start with, I think the last gentleman that came up here and said that what the representatives voted for, and this wasn't years ago, this is a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, that's meaningless. I have a little bit more respect for our system of government than to say that a bill that passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate, and that all the people that signed those letters, that their votes meant nothing and that it was meaningless. That's not how our system works. We're a system of laws. Every single one of those people that signed a letter voted for it. So I have to comment on that because I'm astonished that somebody would get up and say that in front of you. The first commenter, Mr. Hoverak, I believe I pronounced his name correctly, said something that 2 or 3 other commenters said that's a factual statement, and you guys ought to know what the actual fact is. And there was a question about, well, this is needed because of financing, and that they can't get the financing necessary. It is a matter of public record that this project went to financial close in November of last year. It's all over the public record with SAWS. The contract documents have been signed, the pipeline has been funded, the construction is underway. That's just a red herring. This is not about financing. Its financial close has already occurred. That's not a legal issue that's in front of you, but that was said several times, and so I just wanted you to know what the actual state of affairs is. The legal arguments that were made related to essentially 2 different issues. One of them was a number of arguments that Ms. McGarry made, that this is a permit amendment that requires notice and hearing, and that it's essentially substantive. And we just got to get right down to what really matters, which is it substantive or not? Every single person that got up and commented dodged one really, really important issue, which is that the production of the water has been permitted for 27 years. Transport of the water has already been authorized out of the district, and the only question here would be matching the terms of those two permits. As I conceded to you earlier, if we came in here asking the district to extend the transport permit, not to match the term of the existing production permit, but to go say 30 years or 40 years, whatever, that would be a substantive amendment. We would have to file an application. We would have to have notice and hearing. I return to the question that I asked earlier, though. What are we going to have a hearing on? Seriously. I mean, as lawyers, when you try a case, you've got some disputed fact question. What is the disputed fact question? What would we have a hearing on? You've already permitted the water for 27 years. You've already authorized transport out of the district. There's not a question about whether both of those are allowed. It's only a question of whether you're matching the terms of those two permits. And so, you saw what happened when we filed applications to move wells to, accommodate a landowner that wanted it to be over by his fence, that sort of thing. Is it really worth the time, money, effort, etc., to have a permit hearing where there's literally no fact in dispute? Not one single person that got up here said anything about the fact that's in dispute. And what they are protesting is essentially the idea of the project itself. Most of the people are from outside of the district, not all of them, most of them are. I've already made the point in previous comments that a lot of the people voted in a sense by using their property rights and leasing their water rights because they think it's a good idea. But this is not about measuring that here. It's about, as a legal process, is it substantive or not? I submit to you that if you match the terms of those two permits, it's not substantive. As far as the votes go, I just wanted to give these sites to you in case you're interested in looking at this on your own. It's House Bill 2378. The record votes are recorded on House Journal page 2083 and Senate Journal page 2237. Mr. Youngblood, with your permission, I'll walk up and I'll at least show you something on my iPad.
Go right ahead.
This is House Bill 2378 on third reading, Larson. It's all the yays. You'll see Syria is in there. All of them are. And I'll go and I'll show you that. It was 136 yays, 0 nays. It's the same on the Senate side. It passed unanimously. I know you had a potential question about that, so I just wanted to give you those citations. Two or three commenters said something to the effect, well, it's a third again as much, or 33% more. No, it's not. The water is already permitted for 27 years. All this does is match the two terms of those permits. If you don't match, if you look at it on the other side, what legal basis would the district have for not allowing transport for that last 10 years? No one came in here and said that there was a legal basis for doing that. Again, Barney Knight speaks for himself, but you've read his letter. You heard his comments 3 years ago, but more recently you saw his letter. I reattached it to the submission for the district.
The 2016 letter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I reattached it to my request. Several people said, well, Mr. Terrell said this, Mr. Terrell said that. It's not just my opinion, it's your lawyer's opinion. That's what Barney Knight said, that the district would have to extend the permit and that it would be discriminatory to not do it, and that's 36-122 of the Water Code. Those aren't just my words, they're your lawyer's words.
discriminatory.
One last comment about the politicians. The gentleman that got up at the very end and said that, you know, well, that what they said is meaningless. I'll just mention one other thing also. There was so I told you the reason why the bill got killed. And you can look this up for yourself. All of Lyle Larson's bills got vetoed by Abbott. Now,
No, that's not true.
Now, the gentleman that got up here and said that vote is meaningless, during the next legislative session, Abbott put this issue back on the call. The bill was refiled by somebody else. It actually got passed unanimously through one of the chambers. I cannot remember whether it was the House or the Senate. I believe it was the House. But the point that I'm trying to make is it was even going through the process again, but special sessions are only 30 days long. It died. There's no question that it died, but the point that I'm making is it even went in front of the legislature again, and they voted the same way again. It did not become law. That's why we're here. If it had become law, again, Mr. Westbrook would do it with the signature of his pen. But there's no reason to have a hearing on this. This is not substantive. The water's been fully permitted, and that is why we made the request we did. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have that are legal. I'll even address some of these other questions if you think that they're worth addressing as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've got one
Yes, sir.
question I would like to ask that I have not heard.
Yes, sir.
Why is it so important to you to get this done now?
Yes.
Mr. Alford, I would actually turn the question around and say, why would you not match the terms of those two permits?
You
However,
Answer the question.
I'm answering the question the way that it makes sense to me, which is those two permits have different terms. It's fully permitted for 27 years, and the permit terms ought to be matched.
Why?
Why not?
Still haven't answered the question.
Maybe not in the way you like. I'm sorry about that. I tried my best.
Well, permit me to ask, to encourage the continued dialogue. Barbara, you jump in from a legal standpoint. If something is not copacetic legally that Lee's asking, then we can stop it. But I would like, respectfully, Paul, and it's just me, and you tell me if I have the right to ask this as the board president, I would like the continued question back and forth. I'm not satisfied yet, quite frankly, with the answer, Paul, respectfully, and I'd like to continue the dialogue here. And the crowd, let's allow these two gentlemen to continue.
To
If that's
me-
okay with you, Lee?
For 30 days?
No, I'm talking about, yeah. I'd like to continue it, sir, if you don't mind. Barbara, you jump in. I think she's got something to say.
I do. What you have before you is a letter of request to Gary. And I think this is important. You don't have an application. There's nothing to set for hearing right now. You only have a letter of request that Mr. Terrell submitted to Gary for his consideration. At the time that it was submitted, Gary consulted with Barney and indicated that he was uncomfortable with it and felt it needed to come to you for a determination. There is not an application to be set. So a lot of the talk about setting something for a hearing is moved at this stage because there really is not an application as it's set out under your rules. So I think that is one thing that you need to keep in your mind. The second thing is, while that may be an interesting question to get an answer to, that goes more to the substantive aspect of a permit hearing. And that's not what you have before you right now. I understand that you want to get to the very crux of some of your dilemma as to why something is being brought to you 17 years earlier than what you might anticipate. But that really is not something that is before you. What's before you is whether this matter is a substantive or non-substantive such that Gary could handle. Because you don't have an application, you can make some decision. That's the third choice, where I was going with the third choice. That's where you are. You have a letter you can act upon, and then you also have, you make a determination that there isn't something to go forward for a public hearing. And then, Mr. Alford, you will have your answer and be able to ask it at that time, at the public hearing, all the livelong day.
Well, I apologize for jumping ahead. It was a moment of interest, I'll just say.
Doesn't offend me, and I'll continue to say, I don't mind talking about it. She is correct that we have not filed a permit application. We don't think a permit application is necessary because it's not substantive in nature. It's the same reason. It's the same reason why when the permit was transferred, for instance, from Vista Ridge to Abbott Vista Ridge, we didn't have a permit hearing. We didn't file an application, we didn't have a permit hearing. There are some things that don't have to have a permit hearing, and it goes to whether there's a substantial change or not. And in this case, all the parameters that I went through earlier, none of those are changing. The one thing that is changing is the term, which is not listed in your rule. But even if it had been listed, the point that I'm trying to make is, because it's only matching what you have already agreed to permit, it's not substantive in nature. Why do we want the two permits to have the same terms? Because having the same terms makes the project more cohesive. Having them split apart creates a gap that there's no legal or logical basis for having that gap. And so it makes sense for somebody to come in and say, okay, well, you've already permitted the production for 27 years. You've already permitted transport out of the district. The only reason why there is a gap is essentially a historical accident. Let's get rid of that gap and let's align the permits. I again want to make the point that if we had gone to a longer term, that would be a substantive request. I don't know whether that answers your question, but that's my best shot at it.
Lee, answer your question, even though we've had Barbara's input, and I respect that, Barbara. Paul took the opportunity to go further. I don't think it's a matter of answering it. I kind of retract back. Might have been presumptuous of me to want to expand on that after hearing what Barbara had to say, but I appreciate you adding to that. I guess if you have any further things to add.
I don't. I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can, but I don't have any further comments.
Okay. Well, I know you're available because you're going to be sitting right there to ask the board because we're going to start the discussion process.
All right.
One last. One last.
Yeah, it's real simple. We got 17 years. We won't be able to stop them pumping water. I don't care what. So why not, let's look at it. Now we're going to give them another 10 years if we do this. So now they have 27 years to take our water completely down with no control. So if we just watch our water, then we can extend it. Our deal does. But if we give them another 10, we won't be able to stop it.
Thank you. Out of fairness, Paul? Okay.
May I ask Gary a question?
No, you may not, sir, respectively, introspectively.
I understand.
Afterwards, Gary, make a note, please. And I'd like to hear it as well. If you grab me afterwards, if you want to do that.
Sure.
Discussion, board, it's our time to have discussion. Start on that end, perhaps?
I move we do not consider this tonight. I'll second that.
Discussion.